What's up, guys? Ty and I are out here at a dry lake bed, just playing around like usual, and we decided we would take a moment to answer the question that everyone seems to ask: what's the difference between a Kitfox and a Highlander?
I'm Trent Palmer. I fly drones for a living and bush planes for fun. Follow along as I journey off the beaten path of aviation.
What's the difference between a Kitfox and a Highlander?
Yeah, I get asked that all the time, like more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah. I guess before starting any of this, we should mention both of these come from the same DNA.
Yeah.
They're both from an avid flyer heritage. That's why they're so similar, and as far as being side by side, they're similar weight range, similar wingspan. The early airfoil of the Kitfox is the same airfoil on the Highlander. They, both have folding wings. There's a lot of reasons that people compare these and why they're considered so similar, because they kind of are.
Yeah, oh yeah, they all have the same granddaddy.
Yeah. Obviously, Ty and I fly together quite a bit, so we've got now a good amount of time comparing a just aircraft Highlander and a Kitfox STI. Now, this isn't just a direct comparison between the standard Kitfox, because I don't have the standard wing. It is the STOL specific one. Mine takes off and lands quite a bit shorter than stock. Ty's plane is almost stock. Well, not really.
Not really. There's a lot of stuff done to it that just little things that
significantly increase your performance, though. What did you do?
Well, I got a leading edge cuff on the front of the wing, VGs and flap gap seals, and then shocks.
Okay.
So, and then big tires, the usual.
And you've got essentially the leading edge off of a Kitfox.
Yes.
Okay, and that slowed you down pretty good.
Slowed me down and sped me up. So I probably gained 3 to 5 miles an hour on the top end and slowed down, I don't know. I bet you it was about the same on the bottom, but in conjunction with the VGs, it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
without
one thing.
It wasn't as noticeable.
Yeah, when he only had the leading edge cuff off of the Kitfox, we stalled at about the same speed. It was within a mile or an hour of each other, right?
So yeah, real close.
We went up high and just sat there and drug as slow as we could till one of us, broke and stalled, and then it was like that's the loser. I'm always the loser, but now even more so, because with his VGs, he does. I'll say it was at least 4 or 5 miles an hour slower.
Yeah.
The only thing is, you don't really use it on landing because you're going to be beating on your plane so hard.
Can't see anything. You drop in, the main's probably 3 feet or something.
Yeah.
It's real high angle of attack, but it will fly slow.
Yeah. But what we found, again, we're comparing different things here. I do have more engine than him. I'm at about 120 horse. He's only 100.
Yep.
But his plane's about 150 pounds lighter.
Yep. So you can pull me. You can tell you have more horsepower, and it's outweighing the weight.
Yeah.
You climb a little bit better now, and I think, dragging just off the ground where you seem to pull me just a smidge.
Yeah. So our takeoff and landings are so close that I'll just say that's pilot skill. It's not going to be either one of these airplanes just blows the other one out of the water. Like the Highlander always takes off shorter, because I don't know that you do.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you beat me, sometimes I beat you. Yeah. And it's funny, our cruise, again, STI Kitfox versus the Highlander, we're about the exact same. Like, we both comfortably sit at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you have the standard wing on the Kitfox, it's going to fly faster.
Yep.
I used to be 120 miles an hour with the spring gear and the standard wing, but I couldn't land nearly this slow.
Right.
And I didn't take off nearly as short. So it's kind of a really even playing field between the STI and the Highlander. And the other big thing, Ty as far as anyone, is actually probably the most qualified person to answer the question of Kitfox versus Highlander, because how many hours do you have in a Model 4?
600?
Yeah, he's got 600 hours in a Model 4 Kitfox. He's flown the newer ones. He's got how many hours in the Highlander?
Not nearly that much, 150 maybe?
Either
Over like
way,
3 years.
He flies the piss out of that thing. He's
Yeah, I've been
used
flying a lot
both
lately.
to the extent. So he's probably going to be your most unbiased, level-headed opinion. He hasn't spent much time in the STI, but he's spent a little time in it, a bunch of time next to me.
Right.
So he's going to be the one that's going to be able to answer a lot of the pros and cons.
Yep.
So what are they? Pros and cons.
Shoot. Well, flaps make a lot more drag. I do like that. Like coming in on for approach to anywhere, they kind of, it's so much easier to slow down with a flapper on. Now your stall speed's not any lower, but it's just easier to get there, I guess would be the best way to say it.
And that's the thing with the flapper-ons. Flapper-ons are great at creating lift, but they never hit the point that they start creating more drag than lift, like yours do at full flaps. You're creating a ton of drag, a lot of lift, but more drag than lift,
Yep.
which lets you come down really steep and slow and get in. Kitfox, you're gonna have to slip or something, because these things, they just love to fly. They got a ton of lift, so you got to use other tricks to get yourself down, or just set up earlier.
They'll float forever if you come in 5 miles an hour fast.
Yep.
You know, you can't actually hit your spot easily.
Yeah.
Where that, you just chop the power and you're down.
Yeah. And then, what are the other things that are different? Yours uses cables, mine uses push-pull tubes.
Yeah. Other than that, everything else is pretty much the same, other than just like the actual differences in it. I don't have a seat pan that I sit in. I have like adjustable seats that are separate. And I bet you they could probably be made comfortable, but right now they're not as comfortable as like stock Kitfox stuff.
Yeah, that seat pan, that reclined seat is super comfortable. The downside is it sits you so low in the fuselage, and the cowling sits a little higher on the Kitfox as is, that your forward visibility in flight, but especially on the ground, is much worse in the Kitfox. And I'll show you angles right now, but basically when I'm at a 3-point attitude with how I have my gear and my big tires, I can't see anything out the front.
Right, where I can see probably about 30 to 40 feet ahead of me, I can actually see something on the ground.
Yeah.
And so the visibility out of the Highlander is just incredible compared to, the Kitfox. You just got to find, you have a little point that you look out and you learn how to work it. It's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm so used to it, I don't know anything different.
Yeah,
but
and that's the same way flying the 4. You just learn how to work it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And I will say, the push-pull tubes I prefer in the Kitfox, just from the idea that, you know, cables wear, they can come uncrimped, they can get crossed if you were rerunning cables.
Yep.
You'll never do any of that with the push-pull tubes, but the problem is they take up more room in your fuselage, which is why I don't have as big a baggage space.
Yep.
You have a huge baggage area.
I could almost sleep in it if I could get it comfortable enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where the Highlander definitely wins, is the baggage area.
Yep.
Versus the Kitfox. It's not that I'm ever feeling like I'm lacking. I can still carry, even with my short cowl and the aft CG, I can still carry 100 pounds, which is a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I went to Oshkosh, I lived out of the thing for 2.5 weeks and it was fine. But, you know, there's times where maybe I don't want to buy the most compact sleeping bag and tent, so.
All right, guys, really quickly, while I was editing this, I noticed I probably should mention that the Series 7 Super Sport, the current version of the Kitfox, does have a larger baggage than what I have, and they also offer an extended baggage option, which gets it up to about the same capacity as the Highlander. The only thing is it's not quite as easy to access, you know, with the Highlander having folding seats versus the Kitfox having the seat pan. The other thing also, the Series 7 Super Sport has a different firewall forward than what my plane does. Mine with the round cowl has about the worst forward visibility that you're gonna get out of any Kitfox. It's much improved on the Series 7. You can actually kind of see it on here, if you guys can, which I guess is a good time for me to mention that I started making some merchandise. So anyone that's interested in some aviation related hats and shirts, go on to TrentPalmer.com. They're pretty cool. I've got a whole bunch on there, and I'll be adding a lot more shortly. Anyway, back to the video.
The Kitfox is designed at a 1550 gross.
Yeah, and I'm 1320.
1320. So he doesn't have as high of a gross, but you're a lighter airplane.
Right.
So are useful loads similar?
You got another 80 pounds over me.
Yeah.
Yours, I don't know about yours, but like a stock Kitfox, 7, 4, whatever, they're usually a little bit more sporty than that thing. That flies a little bit more like a Cub.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit sloppier on the controls, but it's not super quick, but it is heavy on the controls too.
Yeah.
A standard Kitfox, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sportier.
As far as the companies themselves, I have no experience with Just Aircraft. I've met Troy. He seems like an awesome dude.
I like them, yeah.
Yep. I do know that I bought a used Kitfox that was made by SkyStar aircraft, not
Mm-hmm.
Kitfox aircraft, so they didn't make my plane.
Right.
And they've been really good about support, and it seems like that's kind of an overall thing. And I know that even some people with their Highlanders end up buying parts from Kitfox for the control sticks
Yep.
to move them. And,
Which I have. There's actually a few Kitfox parts on that thing,
yeah.
and so it's
So again, I can't speak to the Highlander side, but I do know Kitfox is a really good company to work with. And
yeah.
that,
And I bought my plane used too, and I just haven't had to order anything from Just, so I can't speak to that. I don't know.
yeah. Durability wise, I think they're both tough airplanes.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like to hate on the Kitfox and the Highlander compared to a Cub, but I have not seen that mine is any weaker than a Cub. I'm using essentially the same size bolts on my landing gear as a Cub is, and they have how much more empty and gross weight.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I gross out usually what they weigh empty.
Yep.
There's a lot of 1,300-pound Cubs out there, which that's a fat one, but
Yeah,
they're out there.
Same here, and I don't know. Mine's been super tough. The one thing I should mention versus a Cub, and I know I mentioned this in another video, but both of these are side-by-side seating.
Yep.
So they don't have the allocated headroom in their CG envelope for putting a 250-pound person behind you. Because what that means, when you fly a tandem aircraft solo and you have to have all that allowance for excess weight in the back, you're always going to be on the front end of the CG envelope, which means you're landing faster, you're taking off faster, your tail has less authority, and you can't brake as hard. Now, when we were just doing our little landings and takeoffs here, I land full lock on the brakes when I want to make it short, and you can see skid marks I'm leaving out here. Can't do that with a lot of the Cubs when you're flying solo, unless they start putting, a 10-pound piece of lead on the tail, which is what a lot of the guys do for competition. I like that we don't have to do that.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of braking power.
Yeah.
Because of the side-by-side configuration. It's nice.
And I've noticed that because of that, a lot of times I can land in the same distance as a plane that's landing a lot slower than me, say a Carbon Cub. I can normally be right there with them. I mean, when we've done competitions, I've beat some of them beaten me.
Mm-hmm.
We're landing really in the same ballpark, but I land a lot faster.
Yeah.
It's just I can slam on those brakes and get stopped a lot quicker. So, it's one of those trade-offs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going slower in the approach helps, but it's not everything.
Yeah. So one of the big things they changed from like the early model Kitfoxes, the 1 through 3 were really the early model ones.
Yep.
The 4 was the first kind of bigger motor, really good performer, running a 4-stroke. The 4 was like they sold so many 4s that was like the
That was the
Kitfox.
quintessential Kitfox there for a long time.
Yes.
It's just when you mentioned Kitfox, that's what popped into your head.
Yeah, and when they moved on from the 4 with the 5 and there on out, mainly the 5 was originally designed to be a full certified aircraft. So they were going for a 1,550-pound gross to get FAA certified. They ran into some headaches with the folding wing thing. FAA didn't want that, so they basically gave up on that. But in that process, they made the plane bigger, a little bit bulkier, and they made it much more buttoned up. So the other day when we were flying over the Sierras at 10,000 feet and it's 15 degrees out, I didn't even have my heater on. I just had my vents closed, and just because of the I guess, greenhouse effect with the skylight, I was toasty and warm.
Yeah.
Yours is a little bit more drafty, kind of like the early
Mine's
Kitfoxes.
like a 4, and it acts like it. It's loud, it's drafty, it's just, you got to really enjoy flying it to,
Yeah.
it's not as refined for sure.
Yeah, and that's the one thing a lot of people get in the Kitfox, and I think they expect it to be loud and rattly and all that.
Yeah, and it's more like a car.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's not as much as if you get in like a 172, because those you can kind of ride without headsets. I don't like riding without headsets in mine. It's loud.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a, that's just another factor.
Yep.
I know the Highlander is a little bit more expensive than a Kitfox to build. Resale end, I think both of them are holding their value pretty incredibly right now.
It used to be like Highlanders would be way more expensive than a Kitfox to buy used.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now they're getting pretty even.
Yeah, there's just not any Kitfoxes out there.
Yeah, at least a newer model Kitfox. I mean, a 4 you can still probably find, if you can find one. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Nobody's selling right now.
The one last thing we should touch on is Super STOLs. I get so many questions of people saying, should I get a Super, or I've been wanting a Super STOL, but now I'm thinking of a Kitfox. Well, a standard Kitfox versus a Super STOL is like apples and oranges. They're totally different things. A Super STOL is designed to do one thing and one thing well, and it's land really slow and land really rough.
Yep.
Right? And it does that super well because the slats, the big flaps, that landing gear that has like 20 inches of wheel travel, it does that really well. Standard Kitfox is nothing like that. The STI is getting closer to that range. I will say that for the most part, I think I can take off as short as a Super STOL because those end up a little heavier.
Yeah, they're draggier, and it takes them a little bit more effort to get off the ground.
Yep, and then they'll rip them into a really steep looking climb, but it's so draggy that they can't really maintain that past 100, 200 feet. But if you're just trying to rip yourself out of somewhere and over a power line, I guess it could work.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I know I cruise faster than a Super STOL. I'm less draggy, and from what I've heard, again, I have not flown a Super STOL, but I've heard that it does not fly nearly as nicely as a Highlander in the air. So I would assume that the Kitfox is a
Better
nicer
yet.
flying airplane
Yeah.
when in the air.
Yeah.
Because, the Super STOL is still going to land. Like, I mean, from what I've heard, it's just hold your stick back and wait, and then mash brakes.
That's the impressive part about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you flown in one?
Flown in one. I don't think I did a landing or anything like that, but yeah, I've flown in one.
What'd you think?
It's exactly like what you just explained. It landed nice, but it was dragging on takeoff, and it just felt like a heavy airplane.
Yeah.
From
what I hear, the tail doesn't always like to follow it. You're doing a lot of rudder through turns.
Yeah.
It's not, not
And,
quite as harmonized in a hole, and there's some
it
weird...
It never feels like you can get up on step and cruise, which you're only doing like 80, maybe 85 in cruise. They might go that fast. That might be optimistic.
Yeah.
But,
so
yeah, you just kind of plow through the air with them.
Yeah. They're still cool planes. I don't want to discount them. And again, all three of them, being the Kitfox, a Highlander, or a Super STOL, all have the folding wings. They all come from that avid flyer heritage. Yep. It's just different, pick your flavor.
And folding wings isn't exactly something that, like, you don't have to put your airplane away in a corner of a hangar every night by folding the wings or take it home on a trailer. It's just nice in case you knock the gear out of it and want to take it home, or, go pick it up. Transferring to and from the airport when you're building the thing. Yep. That kind of stuff is nice with the folding wing.
And even say when we're flying to Oshkosh, this year we went with a big group, and there was a lot of hangars that we were able to fit in, but there was a couple nights where they couldn't fit all of us, and it's like, well, I can just fold my wings and slide it in right next to them.
Takes 10 minutes.
Yeah, so it is a cool feature to have. It's one of those ones that was one of the selling points when I bought my Kitfox, and I rarely ever use it, but it's still nice to have.
Yep.
So
yeah, it is cool.
Oh, fuel capacity. Ty's got smaller tanks because it's the older Highlander. The newer ones have bigger tanks.
Right, and
so they end up being about
an
the
option.
Same. Yeah.
They just didn't spring for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I made up for that with a header tank in the back, and it's still shorter than the new ones, but better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is one beautiful thing that I forget about my plane. I've got 5.5 hours of endurance on that thing, and that's realistic.
Yeah.
So
4 is realistic for me.
Yeah.
At the moment,
and you got to figure there's not really anywhere in the lower 48 that you need to go that far, 500 miles between fuel stops. You can always, normally I got to stop to pee, and then you got bush wheels and bush gear. It makes it really nice because I don't have to go find the next airport and do all that. I just find a dirt road, stop, pee, carry on, which is a fun feature. I don't know that it's that much value, but to me it's some value.
It makes the trip better. I mean, I travel back and forth to work a lot, and it's a 2-hour trip, and I usually take 2.5 because I'm landing everywhere.
Yeah. As far as takeoff and landing performance, the difference that we're seeing between our style planes and what people are considering the gold standard carbon cubs and the slatted cubs and all that isn't enough that it's limiting to where we can go.
Right.
We can go anywhere they can go.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part. At some point you just get to the point where someone's willing to risk it a little more than you are, and that's a pilot. That's not the plane thing. My plane could probably go there. Can I fly it in there? Not going to do that.
Yeah.
So
I run into that a lot.
Yeah. All right, guys, I know that video was probably a pretty long one, pretty wordy, but for the people that are actually interested in it, I think it's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it answered a lot of good questions.
A lot of the questions that I had, and a lot of them, honestly, even I'm learning stuff right now, and I've flown with this Highlander for a long time and been in other Highlanders, so it's fun to have that conversation, and there's a lot more to it than just simple, the Highlander's better, or the Kitfox is better. It's kind of, pick your poison, whatever you like.
You'd be happy with either one, honestly.
Yep. So, closing this one out, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure to subscribe. Come be our wingman, and see you guys in the next one.